My husband wanted to name our baby after his ex's child, so I took my daughter, exposed their sick obsession, and watched their empire crumble. I used to think that carrying my first child would be the most magical time of my life, until my husband asked me to name our baby after his dead ex-girlfriend's daughter, and everything I thought I knew about love crumbled in an instant. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 30 years old, and I teach preschool at a small elementary school in our suburban town. 7 months ago, when I found out I was pregnant, my husband Lucas and I cried tears of joy in our tiny bathroom, holding each other as we stared at those 2 pink lines that would change everything. Lucas Bennett, my husband of 3 years, works as a software engineer, and we'd been trying for a baby for over a year. Finally, it was happening. The first few months were everything I dreamed of. Lucas would talk to my growing belly every night, making elaborate plans about teaching our child to ride bikes and build computers. We'd spend weekends browsing baby stores, arguing playfully about cribs and car seats. He was so attentive, so excited that I felt like the luckiest woman alive. But around my 6th month, something shifted. Lucas became distant when we talked about baby names. Every time I brought up our list of favorites, he'd change the subject or say we had plenty of time. I started to worry that he was having second thoughts about becoming a father. But whenever I asked, he'd kiss my forehead and assure me everything was fine. We should really decide on a name soon, I said one evening as we sat in our living room, my hand resting on my swollen belly. She's going to be here in 3 months. Lucas looked up from his laptop and I saw something flicker across his face. Fear, maybe, or guilt. I've actually been thinking about that, he said slowly. Oh good. What names are you considering? I was so relieved that he was finally ready to discuss it. He closed his laptop and turned to face me fully. Emily, there's something I need to tell you about my past, something I should have shared before. My heart started beating faster. In 3 years of marriage, Lucas had always been somewhat private about his life before we met, but I'd never pushed because everyone has a right to their history. Before I met you, he continued, his voice carefully controlled, I was in a serious relationship with a woman named Sarah. We were together for 4 years, and she had a daughter from a previous relationship, a little girl named Lily. I felt a strange chill run through me, but I tried to stay calm. Okay, why are you telling me this now? Lily was 3 years old when Sarah and I started dating. Her biological father wasn't in the picture, so I became like a dad to her. She called me Daddy Lucas, and I loved her like she was my own. His voice was getting thicker with emotion. We were planning to get married, to officially adopt Lily, to have more children together. What happened? I asked. Though part of me already knew this story wouldn't have a happy ending. Lily was hit by a drunk driver on her 4th birthday. She died instantly. Lucas's voice broke. Sarah and I fell apart after that. The grief was too much. We couldn't look at each other without seeing Lily's face, without remembering what we'd lost. I felt my own eyes filling with tears. Lucas, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you'd been through something so terrible. I never told you because it was too painful, and because I thought I'd moved on. But now, with our baby coming, he reached for my hands. Emily, I want to name our daughter Lily, to honor the little girl who taught me how to be a father, who made me ready to love our child. The words hit me like a physical blow. I pulled my hands away from his, staring at him in disbelief. You want to name our daughter after your ex-girlfriend's dead child? It's not about Sarah, he said quickly. It's about Lily. She was innocent, she was pure, and she deserved a full life. Naming our daughter after her would be like letting Lily live on somehow. I stood up, my pregnant belly making the movement awkward. Lucas, do you hear yourself right now? You want our child to carry the name of a dead girl? To somehow replace what you lost? That's not what I'm saying. That's exactly what you're saying. My voice was rising and I could feel anger building in my chest like a fire. You want our daughter to be a memorial to your grief instead of her own person. Please just think about it, he pleaded. Lily is a beautiful name. Our daughter could have it without knowing the history until she's older. It doesn't have to be about replacement, it could be about honoring. No, the word came out sharp and final. Absolutely not. I will not name my child after a ghost from your past. Lucas's face crumpled. Emily, please. You don't understand what this means to me. I understand perfectly. You're asking me to turn our daughter into a tribute to another woman's child. You're asking me to give birth to a replacement for someone who died before I ever existed in your life. That's not fair. What's not fair is you springing this on me 7 months into my pregnancy. What's not fair is you never telling me about this huge part of your life until now. What's not fair is you expecting me to sacrifice my child's identity for your unresolved grief. I left the room and went to bed alone that night, leaving Lucas on the couch. But this was only the beginning of my nightmare. The next morning, I woke up to find Lucas on the phone with his mother, Margaret Bennett. She was a formidable woman who owned a chain of family restaurants, and had always treated me like I was temporary, like Lucas could do better. When she arrived at our house that afternoon, her face was set in grim determination. "Emily, dear," she said in her condescending tone, "Lucas has told me about your little disagreement regarding the baby's name." "It's not a disagreement, Margaret. It's my decision as the child's mother. Actually, it's a family decision. And this family has been through enough tragedy without you adding to it with your selfishness." I felt like I'd been slapped. Selfishness? Lucas loved that little girl like his own daughter. He mourned her, he grieved for her, and now he's found a beautiful way to honor her memory. The fact that you can't see past your own ego to support your husband is deeply disappointing. My ego? I'm trying to protect my unborn daughter from being burdened with someone else's trauma. Margaret's eyes turned cold. "Let me be very clear, Emily. Lucas is my only son, and this family's future depends on him making good choices. We've invested significantly in your marriage. The down payment on this house, the furniture, your car, Lucas's student loans that we helped pay off. We've treated you like a daughter. What does that have to do with? If you can't show proper respect for this family's wishes and this family's grief, then perhaps you're not the right fit for this family at all." Her voice was like ice. I would hate to see Lucas have to choose between his wife and his family's values, especially when that choice could affect his financial future so dramatically. The threat was clear. Margaret controlled significant family money, and Lucas's comfortable lifestyle depended on her support. She was essentially saying that if I didn't name my daughter Lily, she would cut us off financially and pressure Lucas to leave me. "You're threatening me," I said quietly. "I'm offering perspective. You're a school teacher, Emily. How exactly do you think you'll manage mortgage payments, daycare, health insurance, all on your teacher's salary? Lucas is a good man, but he's young, and young men sometimes make choices based on emotion rather than practical reality." That night, Lucas tried to convince me that his mother was just trying to help, that maybe we should consider the practical aspects of our situation. "Emily, be reasonable. It's just a name, but the consequences of fighting this, we could lose everything. So you're siding with her?" "I'm trying to think about what's best for our family, for our daughter. She'll need financial security, good schools, opportunities. My mother can provide that, but only if we don't alienate her. By naming our child after your dead ex-girlfriend's daughter. Emily, please. I love you. I love our baby, but I also can't pretend that Lily didn't exist, that she didn't matter. This could be a way to honor her while also keeping our family together." I stared at my husband, the man I'd loved and trusted for 3 years, and realized I didn't know him at all. "You're asking me to choose between my child's identity and our financial security. Do you hear how insane that sounds? I'm asking you to compromise, to understand that sometimes love means making sacrifices. What sacrifices are you making, Lucas? What are you giving up?" He couldn't answer that. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure intensified. Margaret called daily, sometimes to chat sweetly about baby preparations, other times to make pointed comments about family loyalty and practical concerns. She started copying Lucas on emails about family investments and future plans, making it clear how much money was at stake. Meanwhile, I began doing my own research. I looked up Sarah online, found her social media profiles, learned about the accident. I saw photos of little Lily, a beautiful girl with curly blonde hair and bright blue eyes. I read the news articles about the drunk driving incident, the court proceedings, the family's grief. But I also found something else. Sarah's more recent post showed her in therapy, talking about healing, about moving forward. In one post from just 6 months ago, she wrote, "Learning to honor Lily's memory without letting grief control my future. She would want me to be happy, to love again, to let other children be themselves without carrying the weight of who she was." That post hit me like lightning. Even Lily's own mother understood that honoring a dead child didn't mean imposing their identity on living children. I also discovered that Lucas had never actually cut contact with Sarah. They weren't romantically involved, but they texted occasionally, and he'd never told me. These weren't inappropriate messages, but they were filled with shared grief, shared memories of Lily, and promises to never forget. The final straw came when I found a letter Lucas had written but never sent, lying in his desk drawer. It was addressed to Lily and dated just 2 months ago, shortly after we'd found out we were having a girl. In it, he promised that our daughter would carry Lily's name, that she would live the life you never got to live, and that part of you will be born again. I realized this wasn't about honoring a memory. This was about Lucas trying to resurrect a dead child through our daughter. He wanted our baby to be Lily reborn, to somehow fix the tragedy that had destroyed his previous relationship. That night, I confronted him with the letter. Emily, you went through my private things, your private things. Lucas, I'm your wife. And this letter proves that you're not just asking me to use a name. You're asking me to let you turn our daughter into a replacement for Lily. You're twisting my words. Am I? You literally wrote that part of Lily will be born again through our child. You want our daughter to live Lily's unlived life. How is that not trying to replace her? I loved that little girl, and I understand that. But love doesn't mean imposing the dead onto the living. Love doesn't mean making our daughter carry the psychological burden of being someone else's second chance at life. Lucas's face was red with anger and tears. You have no idea what it's like to lose a child. You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to carry a child, to grow a unique human being inside my body, to love someone who doesn't even exist yet but who deserves her own identity. I know what it's like to have my own mother-in-law threaten my financial security because I won't turn my daughter into a memorial. My mother is trying to help. Your mother is manipulating you. She's using money to control our family decisions, and you're letting her. So what do you want me to do, Emily? Cut off my family? Lose everything we've built together? Is your pride worth more than our daughter's future? That question broke something inside me. My pride? Lucas, this isn't about pride. This is about the fact that you and your mother are treating our unborn daughter like she's negotiable. Like her identity, her name, her very sense of self is something you can trade away for money and family approval. That's not what we're doing. Then prove it. Tell your mother that we're naming our daughter whatever we choose, and that her threats won't influence our decision. Choose your wife and child over your mother's manipulation. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment he made his choice. Emily, be realistic. We need my family's support. I didn't let him finish. I walked upstairs, packed a bag, and called my parents. My mother answered on the second ring. Emily? Sweetheart, what's wrong? Mom, I need to come home. I need to come home right now. Of course, honey. Whatever you need. As I threw clothes into my suitcase, Lucas followed me upstairs, panicking. Emily, what are you doing? You can't just leave. Watch me. You're 8 months pregnant. You can't move out now. I can't stay here and watch you turn our daughter into a ghost. Please, we can work this out. We can find a compromise. What compromise, Lucas? Name her Lily as a middle name? Give her Lily's nickname? Let your mother have input on every major decision for the rest of our child's life? I zipped up my suitcase and faced him. There is no compromise when one side wants to erase a child's individual identity before she's even born. Emily, I love you. I love our baby. Please don't do this. Then choose us. Right now. Call your mother and tell her that her threats are unacceptable. That our daughter's name is our decision, and that if she can't respect that, she won't be part of our lives. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I can't just... Then you've already chosen. I left that night. My parents, God bless them, took me in without question. My father helped me move my things while my mother set up the guest room with everything I'd need for the baby. They were furious when I told them the whole story, but they focused on supporting me rather than attacking Lucas. Sweetheart, my mother said as she helped me unpack, you did the right thing. No woman should have to negotiate her child's identity. Over the next few weeks, Lucas called constantly. He sent flowers, wrote letters, even showed up at my parents' house a few times. But every conversation ended the same way, with him asking me to just consider the name Lily, to think about the practical implications of alienating his family. Margaret, meanwhile, launched a campaign of her own. She called my parents, my friends, even my principal at school, spinning a story about how I was being unreasonable and hormonal, how I was destroying Lucas's mental health by keeping him from his unborn child. "She's telling everyone that you're unstable," my friend Jessica told me over coffee, "that you're making irrational decisions because of pregnancy hormones." "What do you think?" I asked her. "I think you're the sanest person I know. And I think Lucas and his mother are trying to gaslight you into thinking that their insane request is normal." But the community pressure was intense. This was a small town where Margaret Bennett was well known and respected. Some people began to whisper that maybe I was being too stubborn, that family harmony was more important than a name. The worst part was that Lucas seemed to believe his mother's narrative. In one of our phone conversations, he actually said, "Emily, I'm worried about your mental state. This level of anger isn't healthy for you or the baby. Maybe you should talk to someone." "I am talking to someone, Lucas. I'm talking to a lawyer." The silence that followed was deafening. "Emily, you don't mean that." "I absolutely mean that. I'm filing for separation, and I'm making sure that when this baby is born, her name will be chosen by her mother, not by her father's dead girlfriend's memory. You can't keep my child from me. Watch me." That's when things got really ugly. Margaret hired her own lawyer and tried to argue that I was emotionally unstable and shouldn't have sole custody of the baby. They demanded court-ordered psychological evaluations, claiming that my irrational attachment to naming the baby myself was evidence of mental illness. But here's the thing about small towns. Gossip spreads fast, and people eventually hear the truth. When word got out about what Lucas and Margaret were actually demanding, public opinion shifted dramatically. My principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, was the first to publicly support me. "I've worked with Emily for 5 years," she told anyone who would listen. "She's one of the most level-headed, caring people I know. The idea that she's unstable for wanting to name her own child is absolutely ridiculous." Other teachers, parents from my school, even some of Margaret's own restaurant employees began speaking out. A group of mothers from my prenatal class started a social media campaign with the hashtag #EmilyCuses, sharing their own stories about family pressure during pregnancy. The breaking point came when Sarah, Lily's mother, contacted me directly. I was 36 weeks pregnant when I received a Facebook message from her. "Hi Emily, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I heard about what's happening with Lucas and his family, and I wanted you to know that I think what they're asking is completely inappropriate." We talked on the phone the next day, and what she told me changed everything. "Emily, I loved Lily more than life itself, and losing her nearly destroyed me. But naming your daughter after her won't bring her back, and it's not what she would have wanted. Lily was a little girl who loved being unique, who insisted on picking out her own clothes and making her own choices. She would hate the idea of another child being forced to carry her identity. Lucas doesn't see it that way. Lucas is stuck in grief, and his mother is enabling it. When Lily died, I had to learn how to honor her memory without letting it control my future. Lucas never learned that lesson, and now he's trying to solve his unresolved grief by imposing it on your child. He says he loves the baby. I'm sure he does. But love doesn't mean making a child responsible for healing your past trauma. That's not love, that's burden." Sarah agreed to write a letter stating her position, which my lawyer used in court. Her words were powerful. "As Lily's mother, I do not consent to her name being used for another child, especially not as a result of family coercion and financial threats. Lily's memory should be honored through love and healing, not through forcing her identity onto an innocent baby who deserves her own name and her own life." The custody hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks before my due date. I was enormous, uncomfortable, and exhausted, but I was also determined. I brought documentation of everything: the threats from Margaret, the letter Lucas had written to Lily, the evidence of financial coercion, testimony from friends and colleagues about my mental stability. Lucas showed up with his mother and their lawyer, still insisting that they just wanted what was best for the family. But when the judge asked him directly whether he would stop demanding the name Lily if it meant keeping his family together, he couldn't answer. "Your Honor," he finally said, "some things are more important than convenience. Honoring Lily's memory is one of those things." The judge, a woman in her 50s who had raised 3 daughters of her own, looked at him with barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Bennett, are you seriously telling this court that a dead child's memory is more important than your living wife's right to name her own baby? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. And frankly, it's deeply concerning that you would prioritize a symbolic gesture over your wife's emotional well-being during pregnancy. I was awarded temporary sole custody, with Lucas granted visitation rights only if he agreed to stop pressuring me about the name. He refused the offer. I went into labor 2 days later. My parents drove me to the hospital at 3 in the morning, and 12 hours later, I was holding the most beautiful baby girl I'd ever seen. She had my dark hair and Lucas's green eyes, and when she looked at me, I knew exactly what her name should be. "Hello, Grace," I whispered to her. "Grace Elizabeth Carter." Grace, because she was a gift of grace after the most difficult period of my life, Elizabeth. After my grandmother, who had taught me that a woman's worth wasn't determined by her willingness to sacrifice her own identity for others. Lucas arrived at the hospital 3 hours after Grace was born, accompanied by Margaret. They weren't allowed in the room, but they stood outside the nursery window, staring at their granddaughter through the glass. I had told the nurses about the situation, and they were wonderfully protective. When Margaret demanded to know the baby's name, the nurse simply said, "You'll have to ask the mother." Lucas tried to visit later that evening, begging to hold his daughter, to be part of her first moments. Part of me wanted to let him. He was her father after all, and despite everything I knew he loved her. But when he walked into my room, the first words out of his mouth were, "She's beautiful. She looks like Lily did as a baby." I asked him to leave. Over the next few days, the story spread throughout our small town. People couldn't believe that a father would choose a dead child's memory over a relationship with his living daughter. Margaret's restaurants began losing customers as people boycotted her businesses. Lucas was ridiculed at work and in social circles. The final nail in the coffin came when local newspaper picked up the story. The headline read, "Local man loses family over demand to name baby after ex-girlfriend's dead child." The article included quotes from Sarah, from my principal, from other mothers in the community, all supporting my decision. Margaret's reputation never recovered. She went from being a respected businesswoman to being seen as the kind of person who would threaten a pregnant woman over a name. Lucas was seen as weak, manipulative, and stuck in the past. 3 weeks after Grace was born, Lucas showed up at my parents' house with papers relinquishing his parental rights. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his eyes red with exhaustion. "The whole town hates me. My mother is furious that I couldn't convince you. My job is in jeopardy because of all the negative publicity. I can't fight this anymore. Lucas, she's your daughter." "No, she's not. She's your daughter. She's Grace, not Lily, and I don't know how to love a child who isn't meant to fix what I lost." It was the most honest thing he'd said in months. I didn't fight the papers. I was financially secure thanks to the child support settlement. I had my parents' support, and I had a community that had rallied around me. Most importantly, I had Grace, beautiful, perfect Grace, who would grow up knowing that her mother had fought for her right to be her own person. 6 months later, I received a card from Sarah. Inside was a photo of her with a new boyfriend and his young son, all of them smiling at a beach somewhere. The note read, "Thank you for showing me what moving forward really looks like. Lily would be so proud of how you protected Grace's right to be herself." Some children are meant to heal us, others are meant to teach us how to heal ourselves. Grace is lucky to have a mother who knows the difference. I kept that card in Grace's baby book, along with all the letters of support I'd received during the custody battle. One day, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her the story of how her name was chosen, not through compromise or manipulation, or financial threats, but through love, determination, and the belief that every child deserves to start life as themselves, not as someone else's second chance. Today, Grace is 8 months old, and she's developing the most amazing personality. She's curious, strong-willed, and absolutely fearless, qualities that I hope will serve her well when she faces her own challenges in life. She laughs when I sing to her, reaches for everything she can't have, and has this way of looking at me like she knows exactly how much I love her. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how everything played out, if I wish I'd found a way to compromise and keep the family together. The answer is always no. I learned that being a mother isn't just about giving birth. It's about protecting your child from the very beginning, even when that protection comes at great personal cost. I learned that family isn't just about blood relationships. It's about people who love and support you without trying to control you. My parents, my friends, my colleagues, even strangers in my community showed me more genuine care during my pregnancy than my husband and his mother ever did. Most importantly, I learned that compromise isn't always virtuous. Sometimes, standing firm on your principles, protecting your boundaries, and refusing to negotiate your child's fundamental right to their own identity is the most loving thing you can do. Lucas sends a birthday card every year, but he's never asked to meet Grace. Margaret moved to another state after selling her restaurants. As far as I know, neither of them has learned to separate honoring the dead from controlling the living, but Grace and I are thriving. We live in a little house near my parents', where Grace has grandparents who adore her for exactly who she is. I've been promoted to assistant principal at my school, and I'm considering going back to graduate school. Grace goes to the same daycare where I used to drop off my students, and the workers there tell me daily what a joy she is to be around. Every night, when I put Grace to bed, I tell her the same thing. You are exactly who you're supposed to be, baby girl. You don't owe anyone else your identity, your choices, or your dreams. You are Grace Elizabeth Carter, and that's the most beautiful name in the world because it's yours. And when she smiles at me with those bright green eyes, I know that every sleepless night, every legal battle, every moment of uncertainty was worth it to ensure that she would grow up free from the burden of being anyone other than herself.